and it seems to have gone very quickly and slipped through.
Mm-hmm.
So this was to get them to withdraw the RFP and let the community submit an RFP also,
Right.
okay, which we were not successful in doing. But
Because you didn't have a developer, or?
no, because the EDC wouldn't, the city wouldn't withdraw the RFP.
Oh, it's too late, I got you.
They
I got you.
refused.
You missed it,
Okay.
Yep,
And we wanted to put the community needs in the RFP.
right.
But that didn't happen, so then we all started meeting. It was like Beverly,
Yeah.
me,
Beverly.
Rose,
Right.
Evelyn,
Yeah.
this whole thing. And we have a very thorough plan worked out, not for the housing segment, but for the use of the armory itself.
Yeah.
So our plan reflects what the community voted for at their meetings.
Mm-hmm. At the army meetings.
At the
Yeah.
armory meetings
Yeah.
at the church. There were two sets of meetings. One was with stakeholders,
Yeah.
where there were about 10 groups of 10 people.
Right.
And then there were the big meetings where there were about 200 people from the community. There were
Right.
two of those, so 400 people were surveyed.
Right.
And it was up to the community member to sign up. It was well publicized. So right now, we're waiting for the result of the RFP, of who they selected.
Right.
Once that happens, prior to, or at the beginning of the ULURP process, after we evaluate what this developer is willing to do, then we have to really sit down with
And you have no idea who the developer is?
No idea. I mean, there's speculation, but
Yeah. Listen, it's a once in a generation opportunity to affect the community.
exactly.
And, my hope is that we don't miss the boat on it. And it's not reinventing the wheel. I mean, there are big spaces like that have been developed all over the city. And the direction that was given for the RFPs, I'm not sure it was refined enough. You can go to the Pfizer building in Williamsburg or Bushwick. You can go to the Chelsea Market on 9th Avenue and Meatpacking District. These places exist, and they are vibrant, alive, and they're forward-thinking, and So I just really hope that we don't put a one-purpose use.
No, we're prepared for multi-purpose uses. We'll go over it. We can review it. I can make a presentation to the committee.
Great.
I had one other question, and what was the outcome of what the consensus of what the community?
Just off the top of my head, because it was a while ago,
Sure.
was that they wanted it for community use, recreation use, health use, academic uses, childcare, things like that.
Okay.
The housing part, they did not want a hotel because one of the churches.
Yeah,
the
the church was opposed to the hotel.
No,
That's-
the
they
church,
were pushing that
the
really
church,
hard.
the church
Right.
supported the hotel.
They were,
Really?
they did.
Yeah, that and Stein, they hooked up with Steiner Studios.
Stanley Studios, yes, but
Yeah.
But from what I
But
understand,
everybody
they're the
was
only ones
focused
that
with-
wanted it.
Nobody
Absolutely
wanted
turned it
that.
down.
So that's why I think they went back to the drawing boards, because it was so far.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. Have you heard, excuse me, has Diana had any meetings or?
We're still waiting to have a meeting with.
Okay, 'cause that's been going on for 2 months.
Yeah.
But one of the things
When is
that,
the developer gonna be chosen?
It was supposedly their list, what I'm talking about, it's supposed to be chosen now.
What's now? Before the year's over? Is there a date?
No, I mean, it was supposed to be 2 quarters ago.
So can you, do you have a resource you can find out more specifically timing?
No, because the elected officials themselves
Okay,
don't know.
okay.
Now, I spoke to Lydia, and I emailed her, and she said to me that it's gonna be very shortly.
Yeah.
but
I
one
don't
of
know
the
what
things
shortly
they're not
means.
giving up is the housing component.
Lydia, by the way,
They're not
is
giving
the
them.
Hold on.
person who is quarterbacking this for the EDC, the New York City EDC.
Lydia Downey.
Yes.
After the developer's chosen, is community input acceptable?
Oh, yeah, that's the whole key.
It's the whole ULURP and Borough Board and.
Okay, so
Well,
the
we've
developer
done-
doesn't do the menu?
Yeah, what we've done,
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
well, I won't do a menu yet, because we have a presentation, so we should coordinate it.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry that I'm late. Joy Stewart,
Hello,
President of
Stewart.
320 Sterling Street Tenants Association. I hear all of this thing going on. We have been around since 1980, and nobody seems to respect the grandmaster or the grandmother of all the organizations. We do not get invitation, not even as much as a phone call. When we come in here, we hear all these things have already been done and what is in the planning. Could you please tell me, with all due respect, what is really going on? Why are we thrown under the bus or on the back burner?
Can we talk about that in a few minutes? I have that
Yes.
right at the bottom.
Certainly.
Okay,
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So the Armory is one thing that's happening. The other opportunity that we know about is the Kingsborough Psychiatric Center in the most eastern part of this district. The state controls that right now, and apparently for years we've been trying to get it back under the city's control because nothing can happen until that's done. And so I think we're going to need a subcommittee to figure out how to expedite this. And if we can figure this out, expedite getting it from state control to city control. And then once it's under city control, we can talk about, or simultaneously talk about what should be done with that space. Personally, I'm the voice of one. I would love to see 100% affordable housing there, similar to some of the properties in East New York.
Is that closed?
It's closed. There is a homeless shelter on the property. It's a
Okay.
huge piece of land.
That's across the street from Kings County.
Yeah.
The homeless shelter.
Yeah, it's,
Further down
Wait a
Clarkson.
minute. Albany and Clarkson.
so I would encourage everyone to drive down there or take the bus down there and see this property. It's a huge opportunity for our district. It's a gigantic piece of space. You could probably, excuse me please, you can probably house hundreds, if not a couple thousand units on this property. It's sitting there dormant from what I understand, almost 2 decades. And so what I'd like to see this committee do is become the catalyst to getting that from the state to the city and start the process of what the plan should be for that space. And I know in East New York, there are several developments that are 100% true affordable housing.
Speaking of that, we just went and did a tour of East New York today with Charles Barron.
Mm.
And in response to that, because it's really important for us to understand what affordable is, he gave us a chart. So I only have 5 copies of it. So if you're going to talk about that,
Sure.
that's his affordable category that Charles did. And he took us around and showed us, how many complexes was it? I mean, just
Probably 6 different companies.
6 different complexes where that was the affordable, and it was all 100%
100%,
affordable.
yeah.
Everything was 100%.
Yeah.
And that is, that's just,
Yeah, something like 6
don't
stories.
pay attention to
Yeah.
that side, that's
Yeah.
recycled paper.
6 stories.
Yeah,
And
6 stories.
And that's sort of in direct contrast to what we've been getting here, such as 382 Lefferts Avenue.
Right.
Which is almost $2,000 a month studio apartments that pretty much no one here in this room could even qualify for income-wise.
And I think one of the reasons for that is that neighborhood wasn't discovered as fast as this neighborhood. And so by the time 626 Flatbush went up, which is what I think woke a lot of people up when they saw that construction going on, people didn't realize that developers already discovered here and bought up every parcel of land, including the gas stations. And so I think what we're doing now, in my opinion, again, not the board's opinion, my personal opinion, is that we're playing a little catch-up.
Well, I also think that you also had Charles Barron's there for the last 12 years.
Right.
And he has
And his
been
wife.
really, and his wife has been really paying attention to that community. And since 2003, he's been creating affordable housing. And when they came in, each time he said, we will not do anything but 100%. And so you had very strong leadership there that is not playing around.
And that said, even with that, you see, you're going to have the 100% affordable, and then around them are going to be market rate apartments. Because the views from out there are insane. So there are plans right now for towers to go up around Broadway Junction.
Yeah, but that's not in his district.
Outside of this.
That's outside of his district. They didn't go to his because again, he's very strong. They decided to do their rezoning plan on the north side. He's on the south side. Yeah, right. Right, the lines which has a little bit more compromising than Charles.
So, we're going to need a subcommittee to figure out, and maybe we can come back to this tonight, get some people to work. Well, actually, we have the committee fully formed. Let's do it then, actually. Maybe sometime during next meeting, we can talk about some of these subcommittees. But we should, in my opinion, have as a goal this year to, if we don't have it transferred from the state to the city, know the process for how it's going to happen, know why it's been stalled, why it's been dragging for years.
The back was just
But
recycled.
having no
That was recycled
answers,
paper.
having no answers is not an option.
Sorry, I shouldn't have told
Can
you
we
that.
look at, once we get it transferred from the state to the city, since there are so many units there, look at part of it being for an emergency homeless shelter for you,
I think
since
those,
there isn't any of
I
them.
think those kind of specifics, we have to, have a separate planning committee to make a recommendation. Yeah, that's a great idea, but I think a separate group needs to start thinking about what to do with it specifically. But I think it should be dedicated to people who don't have any other options, like you're saying. On the one hand, but also people who are working New Yorkers who can't afford to live here.
Right, I mean, there's a lot of needing with.
And then there's this other category, this city-owned property that might be better utilized. Now, I don't know what that is, but this subcommittee can figure out if that makes any sense. Whether it's I don't know.
The one thing that's come up in the past has been the garages for the garbage trucks by Kings County Hospital. To move that somewhere else and to put something useful to the community there.
Right.
I would say that becomes more visible now because of the building that's going on there with Hudson.
Right.
That whole block is being developed.
Where is that?
It's Winthrop. I believe it's Winthrop and Clarkson,
Yeah.
something like that. It's right on that off New York Avenue.
Parkside, New York Avenue?
Yeah, Parkside.
Parkside, New York Avenue?
Parkside, New York Avenue. So it's a big sanitation garage.
I'm trying to move that for
years.
years and years.
And it kept being rejected.
Yeah.
Not
This
mine.
prior to
Move
me.
it to where?
That's a good question.
That's the question.
Where did the one on Crown go? Where the new Mega Evers Math and Science building? Does anyone know? Did that go anywhere? Or that
Maybe
was
it
just,
went there.
Yeah, that's how it got.
is that right? Way back, about 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
That's how it got
That's
there.
it?
But they, oh, it's not.
That's probably how it
I
got
mean, you look at the
there.
building, it's
And in the past, and this, I don't know if the city's even in the business of doing this anymore, but community boards could recommend to the city, we'd like you to buy this piece of land and make a park, or buy this piece of land and put some affordable housing. So I don't know if they're in that business anymore, but this subcommittee that works on this, I think those are the kinds of things we should be thinking about. As opposed to thinking within the box, I think we have to think a little bit more broadly about what's available, how it's being used, and does it make sense in making the city look at itself as more of a developer. I think those are the kind of opportunities that we should be thinking about in this committee as part of what we can do longer range. Any other thoughts in that department? The third piece in long term was to identify privately owned land slated for development. And that, the range goes from in contract to waiting for your CLO. Okay, and what I have here are the demolitions and excavations in 2015, a request for demolitions and excavations that we know so far. I'm sure that's not all of them. I'm sure there are plots of land that are just sitting there, or buildings that have been bought that where there are plans. And so I think this subcommittee, or maybe it's the second subcommittee, to go out and find out what property has been bought, what the plans are, when they're going to start their plans, where they're in the process, so that we know what's happening and we can communicate that back to the residents of the community.
I have a methodology for that one already.
Oh, great,
To identify.
great. Short term, are the,
I have access to that.
Yeah, I know.
you do?
Yeah, I know how to use the Department of Buildings website.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great. Short term, we have to come up with a plan to promote and conduct public hearings. That's what land use generally does, right? And our most immediate one, of course, is the zoning for quality and adorability is what I wrote. See that?
Affordability.
Adorable, see that? Adorability, that's right. So the houses are gonna be cute. Zoning and affordability text amendment. We have to complete that by November 30th. Now, as Alicia pointed out, we said the first 17 pages?
Yes, if
You know.
if you read the first 17 pages several times, you'll really get an understanding of what that is.
You have
But
to read it cynically.
But I will be, as I promised,
Yes.
submitting something next week
Great,
for you guys, for us to review.
great.
To look at.
And for next week, what I'm asking you to do, we have some homework to do. So if you come into this meeting as a member of the committee or as a resident who's just here to participate, I really encourage you to take a look at this closely, jot down your thoughts, talk to your neighbors, so that we can incorporate as many people as possible in this process. I proactively sent this out to Community Heights, Richard Ho's organization, Crown Heights Community Council. I sent it out to MTOP. I sent it out to some presidents of block associations. So as many organizations as I could think of, I sent them copies and asked them to share it with their membership, because I think it's important to get this far and wide. So that when we get to the point of having the public hearing, you know, that public hearing, we probably would have done all the work already. You know, so that could be a relatively productive conversation. What I'm going to aim to do is have city planning come next week, okay, so that we can ask them questions specifically. They can give us feedback. They can maybe make a mini presentation. So I'm going to try to get them there at our meeting next week.
What's the objective
What objective?
of city planning?
Next
Well, this is
Tuesday.
their plan. They wrote it.
Okay.
So we can ask them questions if there's specific
Pertaining
questions.
to the.
Pertaining to the text amendment, yes, yes, that's why.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
You know, Rabbi Green, you know, it's my Sukkah holiday, you know, I'm so caught up doing a lot of things. I just got back from Jamaica, Queens, and running all over the place. Question number 2, I walk a lot.
Yes.
I started when I started in the precinct as auxiliary chief inspector, I walked the beat. Now, my observation, I saw this building, Prime Royalty, at the corner of Lefferts and New York Avenue. I said, when I come to the meeting, I'd like to ask, what is going on in that building? I have gone midnight hour on the clock. I've seen lights at the top, seen 2 shady characters. What is going on in that building at the corner? Also, Comba's also building another lot behind Kings County. I walk a lot, believe me. I sleep less these days. So I'm looking so fab at 61. Less sleeping,
You're
more
looking
walking.
good, that's for sure.
Thank you, I'm truly blessed. Highly favored.
What-
Question number
what
2.
was the first address?
The first question was Lefferts and Albany, sir. I want you to do
Okay.
your homework for me. The Rebbe, like, he put something on me. I'm not computer literate. I only can dial phones. I don't do Twitter,
Okay.
Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram. all that. That building, I saw 2 gentlemen that have keys, 2 young men with keys to the building.
Yes.
Last night I did my walk because I had sukkah.
Can I ask,
There was a light there.
can I
in
ask
the
you a
building.
question? Are you gonna stay for the whole meeting?
Yes, I certainly will,
Can we
sir.
come to that new business?
Not a problem, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So, on this text amendment, if we could all do our homework, come prepared with comments. Yes, sir.
Hi, Jay Sword, I'm part of CHEFNA, which is an organization in the southeast part of the district. You mentioned a second ago that you were going to get in touch with city planning that was going to come here. I just wanted to offer a suggestion and a request. I have in my hands a document from the Department of City Planning, which I haven't seen publicly on their website. I gave it out a couple months ago to everybody at the ULURP meeting. It's a February 20th letter. And City Planning sends the letter out to pretty much everybody who's important. All of the different agencies like HPD, the borough presidents, the borough boards, the community boards. The one agency that is left out is the agency that this community and every community needs. And since this document involves environmental law, the public advocate is left off of this list. So what I would highly recommend is that before the public advocate, and there's rumors that the public advocate is going to run for New York State Attorney General, before the public advocate does that, can you ask her and the lawyers that she has and the money that she has for a study to come take a look at this and to give it her approval? Because there's a lot of people that say that there's some
Take a look at the
take a
text
look at
amendment?
the zoning text
The
amendment.
text,
Yeah.
if she's not doing that, shame on her.
She is
That's
left
right,
off, she is
because
left
it's
off of
citywide
this
and
list.
I can't believe
And
it,
I just
yeah.
wanna say that all the city agencies, if they need legal advice,
Yeah.
they go to corporate counsel.
Right.
When the people need advice, it's the public advocate. And
Right.
I am, I'm upset that she's left off of this.
Right.
I sent a fax into her office about this 2 weeks ago. It's impossible that she's left off of this list. This is a letter. I got this from CB17.
Yeah,
We didn't get this here.
yeah.
Okay, this is a letter February 20th from Department of City Planning, and it talks about it, it shows who's noticed. Can you ask somebody from the public advocate's office if they can take a look at this and see whether or not there's some civil rights violations in it.
The actual text amendment that was just
That's
distributed,
correct.
sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
I have a question, has she responded to your email, has her office responded?
I sent in a fax 3 weeks ago, and I even sent in another on the email. I haven't got any response on the voting matter. I spoke to somebody else, but this is an incredible amount of law on this. This is environmental law, this is zoning law. She has tons of attorneys on this, and I'll tell you just very quickly, they took out section 2242,
Okay.
which is a certain provision that deals with oversaturation of social services in minority neighborhoods. It deals with also segregating the disabled, where you can't segregate the disabled, it's a restriction on it, section 2242.
Right.
They took it out, they left it in only for the R1 and R2 neighborhoods.
Jay,
So-
are you coming next week?
Right, that's.
Are you coming next week?
Yes.
Yeah, I think those are the kinds of questions that we should present to city planning, so we can have some real feedback from them, because just like you, none of us know those answers.
And if you can contact the public advocate and
And
ask.
we'll invite her next week, she'd like to come,
Thank you
sure,
very much.
absolutely. But I'd be shocked if she doesn't have this. I mean, everyone in city government at her level should be reading this stuff. So I will do our part, but that's shame on that office.
One of the things I think that needs to be included in the short-term plan is proper notification of when these types of proposals are happening. For example, as Jay mentioned, this request was first submitted to community boards. Before it starts the ULURP process, it gives the community boards an opportunity to respond back to city planning, to city government about possible changes.
You mean the 60 days they gave us?
No, that's the ULURP
That's
process.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about before the ULURP process.
Okay.
And we're doing the same thing. What we're doing now is, instead of having the opportunity to respond and push back
We're doing
from the
both at the same
initial,
time. Yep.
now they've made all their changes based upon the community boards that did push back, and we were not one of them. And now they started the official process. And now we're doing the same thing again now with the landmarking. Landmarking was sent out during July. The community was not notified of it. The ULURP committee did not meet. Time has passed where we can put in a response, and now based upon whatever response they did get, now they're going to formalize that and start the ULURP process. So we keep falling behind because we're not being properly notified and then not properly responding before the ULURP process starts.
So we're not being properly notified? Is that
Right.
the fact?
You were
Okay.
not, were you notified about the landmark status?
I wasn't the chair then.
Okay, that came out in July.
Yeah.
And it was given to all community boards.
That's
When we're
convenient.
not in session.
That's convenient.
Well, there are communities that went into session because landmarking is very, very important, and the changes that they are attempting to make will drastically, especially for your community group is trying to do landmarking. So with this new body of law that they're going to be changing, is really going to affect the
Yep.
ability of communities to do landmarking. So
Yep.
yes, it's a very important initiative. I was at the protest when communities did push back, but our community did not respond to that first request. And so we keep doing catch-up because we're not being properly notified. So,
We'll rectify that
so
this
I'm,
year.
right, I'm asking that, well, I always know when it happens, but it's important that the ULURP process, that you guys are made aware of it.
So you
that
find out about it?
Of course I find
Well,
out
well,
about
let me
And you
know.
don't forward it through the community?
Let me know.
it. To who?
To everybody
In
that's on your
July, in
distribution.
July, I didn't know who was the community, I didn't know who was the ULURP committee.
But that's on your distribution list, so someone would be on that, on the committee. So right now.
Well, I
that's
did
just-
send out a mass email telling everybody about the fact that there was a landmarking issue that was up for grabs and that we needed to start to pay attention to it.
Well, in the future, you can send it to me,
Okay.
all right? And I'll make sure it gets to you,
But
please.
remember, that is the district manager's job
And I'll
to
give it to
notify
her.
the ULURP committee
Yep,
about
absolutely.
these things, so that in that case, you would probably should have requested a special session.
I agree with you.
And that I can't do that, right?
I agree with you. I
So
agree with you. I
That's
agree.
all I'm asking, because now we're playing catch-up. We do have to have a response to that landmark.
I agree with
proposal.
you. I think that,
What's the timeline on that?
Well, the timeline for a response from the community board has already passed. It was in
Right.
September. But it doesn't mean that we can't
Yeah,
make.
you can still put a
we-
response
Right,
in.
because they
No
haven't
doubt
started the
about it.
ULURP process yet. So it is important that we at least
Yeah.
state what our position is, because that landmark built is very dangerous for
Mhm.
anybody who's trying to landmark.
Well, this Evelyn Tully is her last name?
Yeah.
And she seems to be taking the lead on what's happening with the landmarking issue in Crown Heights South, and I know Ben Edwards is working on it as well. So, and Hector's all over it.
Mhm.
So we're, you know, yes, I agree, I understand what you're saying, that we're behind the 8 ball, and, but I think it's important for all of us to share whatever information we have in terms of what's going on. Because I mean, personally, I didn't get anything. And I
Okay.
wasn't appointed until the fall.
Okay.
So, but I think if there's information, I mean, the bottom line is that I think we all have similar concerns, and I'm all about proactively including anyone who wants to go up this lead and work, in terms of sharing information and getting it around the table. So I think that's something that we should all try and agree to do. And then other public hearings, we'll just do them as they come up. You know, those are the reactionary things. The city says you got 90 days. That's part of our job to manage these public hearings for the board. And so when that happens, we'll just go into that mode and work. And we probably need a subcommittee to head that up. You know, that sort of stuff. I think sharing responsibility is going to be very important as opposed to just a couple of people doing all the work. And if that is the case, a couple people want to work, I'm going to ask people to think about doing something else instead of wasting their time coming to these meetings on this committee.
Are you going to send out a list of the subcommittees that are needed? Because a couple of them mentioned them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, I'll give it some thought. We can talk about it next week for a few minutes after we, do the heavy lifting with the text amendment and see what people think, they agree to it. I want to make sure that we have, the bulk of the committee appointed, not just board members who are appointed. I want to make sure that we have community residents who are non-board members appointed before I start breaking up committees. And, then as the year goes on, there'll be more people appointed to the board, but by next week, I'd like to say this is the committee that's here.
Right.
And this last point in the short term, strengthen relationships with organizations. We seem to have the North, West, and South on lock in terms of organizations that represent the interests of those residents. We don't have anything in East. So if anyone knows, I have you down here. I thought. No, what's the name of your organization?
Chefna, Crown Heights East Flatbush neighborhood.
So, could you say it again?
Chefna?
Crown Heights, East
Crown
Flatbush.
Heights, East Flatbush.
Yeah, you got it
Neighborhood
down there.
Association.
So what else is East? And
No,
does
there's-
anyone know other
Well,
organizations?
there's not a lot of organizations, but if you speak to Denise Mann,
Yeah.
she'll have a good handle on it.
Yeah, we need some bodies from over there.
I mean, the other part is that a major part, the whole northern section is a Hasidic area.
Yeah.
And they're very well organized, and it's a question of.
Well, we need some representation. Yeah.
I agree.
We need to figure out who.
I'm struggling with that now with,
Economic development?
EDC,
Yeah, we need some representation from over there.
I can assist.
You can get some names? Yeah, that'd be great. Because ideally, yes, Suki.
Sorry.
Is it Suki? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I just wanted to say, I don't know if my organization, Concerned Citizens for Community-Based Planning, if we're under the et cetera, or if you.
Yeah, I didn't know all the names. So what I'd like you to do is email your organization and others that you know of in your area. So that they can just be on a mass distribution list and we can disseminate information as it comes up so that everyone's working from the same information. I thought you were PPAN. You're Concerned Citizens.
It's a little defunct right now.
Oh,
A little defunct.
So your organization's name is?
Concerned Citizens for Community-Based Planning.
so if everyone can email me their organizations and others that you know and the contact information, that will be fantastic. And I'll make sure that it gets around to the rest of the group and we'll create kind of a list. And we can sort of go from there, all right? So for example, when this text amendment came out, had I had all these people, we would have sent them all a copy of the text amendment saying, come back with your thoughts and comments, section by section, so we can incorporate them and present them, or present them as part of our recommendations to what we all agree to going forward. All right. So please, I need more organizations east. If they're, South, Shore, North, and West, we can,
Hey,
whatever.
you're really talking about, you know who else, because you're really talking about the bottom half,
Yeah,
it's, what's her name,
Denise Mann has one.
no, Denise, but it's also Winthrop, who was the woman who had the park redone? I'll give you her name.
yeah.
Dodgertown?
No.
Yeah, so we need the Hasidics, we need another folks east, Utica Avenue, you know, the hoop.
Yeah, I'll give you the
some-
contacts for the Hasidics.
Some folks down there, that Kingsborough Psychiatric Center, who's down there, you know, so, and that list can be a working document that continues to build
Yeah,
as time
that,
goes
that
on.
whole area is forgetting Kingsborough and the other hospital,
Kings County.
Kings County.
Yeah,
That whole area up will be Denise Mann, Jay, and this other person I'll give you the name.
I'm in a different organization. than
Yeah,
Denise.
different organization, I'm talking geographic.
Yes.
You're talking about East Flatbush, the East Flatbush section, which
It
is,
was called something else. I
there's
forget what it is.
Winthrop is
Winthrop.
above, yeah.
Yeah,
And then there's East Flatbush, which is on the, south side of Kings
south
County
side,
and.
but that's a different community board,
Okay.
that's 17.
So-
Excuse me, if anybody has not signed this, please do so.
Yes.
So that's very important in terms of making sure that all the neighborhoods and residents are covered. So whatever you got, please get it, because what I'm trying to do, and I know what Demetrius is trying to do, is make this community board, and this committee in particular, more accessible. So that people feel like they can come, ask questions, be a part of the process, as opposed to not. Okay.
I
So-
just want to mention that I really bend over backwards to be part of this.
Okay.
You know, even checked into Comfort Inn so I can be here late at nights. When something happens to her, I support her all the way at the
Right.
precinct. I mean, you know, so I want to, because I've been in this community for 31 years.
Did you sign
You
it?
know, no, I'm trying to get
Okay,
to
great,
it.
okay.
But I'm very committed to my community, as anyone can tell you about your Sukkot or no Sukkot Jewish holidays. I need to be in the tent eating. This is more important.
Right, right, and you're Jewish?
And I'm Jewish. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So can you do me a favor, can you
I'm
check
going
your name so I know who you
yes,
are?
I certainly
I'd like to
will.
talk
I
to you later,
certainly will,
okay.
yes.
So no, these were just some starting points. Anything else we should consider for objectives, goals for the year? Yes.
I thought I had heard that the city was planning on instituting some sort of policy where there had to be a lawyer on the ULURP committee. So, because a lot of what we deal with is so technical.
A lawyer from the city or
I
just
don't
a lawyer
know,
on the
that's why I
committee?
wanted to ask, has anybody
Yeah.
heard about that, or anybody,
I haven't heard about that. I haven't read it anywhere.
I could look into it, but if everybody else hears or can, if you can look
I can
into
ask
it, because,
specifically, yeah.
specifically because of this, some of the things that are going on that are so legal.
Are you talking about the 197A plan or the ULURP?
They were just talking about in general, have the ULURP committees having a lawyer on the,
Well, I know Borough Hall has an expert.
but I mean each community board, because
Yeah.
some of the things that we deal with are sometimes very technical. Yeah, or a real estate
Yeah.
lawyer or something, but I just don't know if anybody else have heard that, obviously they haven't, but if you could look into
I'll
it,
check
I'll
into
look
it.
into it
Yeah.
and a little bit more also.
And then people were really knowledgeable about the facts. You know, like Tom
Yeah.
was involved because he's a professional city planner. Specifically wanted him for his knowledge of how this whole thing works. So we need more experts. Would be terrific. Yes, sir.
I think one thing to add is community outreach.
Over and above B?
Yes.